feelings. Okay, there's 4 that I want to highlight here. The first is our feelings are often unreliable. Have you noticed that feelings just, when they're there, they're there, and when they're not, they're not, and you don't really know when they're going to show up and when they're not. Feelings are often untrustworthy. Our intuition is often flawed. Our emotions can lead us down a blind alley. You and I, especially as believers in Scripture, we're taught not to depend solely on how we feel. Proverbs 14:12 says it this way: there is a way that seems or feels right to a man, but its end is the way of death. Have any of you ever done something that felt right in the moment, only to realize it was the worst thing you could have possibly have done later? Never. You've never made an impulse buy? You've never done anything, said anything that you regretted? Nobody? Nobody? For you stoics in here, you're all mature. Sometimes you need to say some things that you're not saying and not be so resentful. Come on, somebody, anyways. You know, they're unreliable because oftentimes our emotions are governed by nurture, right? They're governed by our family of origin. They're governed by our experiences. But by the way, contrary to rumor, there have been other human beings that have lived before you that have discovered some pretty good things. And when we act on our feelings, what happens is we're acting with pinpoint accuracy when there's no way we can be accurate. Does that make sense? We're literally eliminating every other option and we're doing what feels good. You know, I remember growing up, I grew up in a very, very poor home where we literally had money for almost nothing, including groceries. Like I used to remember, I'm 1/512th Cherokee Indian, by the way, if y'all knew that. I am. I'm very proud of that point. I have a card that says it. We're growing up, the Cherokee Indians would actually give us food, but they were white cans with no printing on the label. So it was like a mystery surprise every time, you know. Sometimes it'd be peanut butter, sometimes it'd be peaches or something, you know. And I grew up very, very poor. And I remember going through the mall and I would look at something that I wanted and my mom would say, no, we can't afford that. 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 You know what I said in my mind? I said, one day I'll be able to. So then I grew up, married a smoking hot little lady named Kyla. She went into medical school. She's a doctor. So guess what now? I can walk down that store and you know what? I can get whatever I want. Until the credit card bill comes back. You see what I'm saying? Like, you know, we got to be careful because this is the second thing. It's important. Our feelings can be manipulated. This is what's so important. There are entire industries dedicated to manipulating how you feel. And if you don't learn to manage your emotions, you're going to constantly be manipulated into doing things like buying a jet ski. Why would anybody ever do that? And then letting pastors drive it and crash it. Come on, somebody, anybody. Preaching to myself a little bit to 8:30. I need to control my emotions. Marketers and advertisers are trained to stir up your emotions because they know that if they can get you hooked emotionally, you're going to buy their product. Just think about the last 17 things you bought off an Instagram ad. Come on, be honest. Proverbs, the wisest man ever wrote this in Proverbs 25:28. Like a city that is broken into and without walls is a man or woman who has no control over his spirit. Solomon's talking about their emotions. They can't control their emotions. It's like being vulnerable all the time. There's no protection. There's no walls. The person that has no check on their feelings is a person that constantly gets manipulated. The next truth of our feelings is our feelings seek to control us. I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but the Apostle Paul talks a lot about this in the book of Romans, where he's constantly at war with this part of himself that is called the flesh. And he's constantly at war with his desires. And you give your life to Christ and you have a new spirit, you're born again, but that spirit begins to contend with your feelings. Did you know that your feelings literally, if left unchecked, they have a mind and a desire of their own, and it never goes towards God. It always goes away from him. God cannot be God in my life if my emotions are the God of my life. Romans 8:6-8 says this: to be controlled by human nature results in death, but to be controlled by the Spirit results in life and peace. Everyone say peace. For some of you, you're going to get a lot of peace as you learn God's mind on this subject. Those who obey their human nature cannot please God. The next thing I want to talk about is our feelings uncontrolled will ruin our lives. I've watched this. I've watched this as a pastor. I just felt like it. And time again, they end up in this ditch, and the rut gets so dug out that it absolutely ruins their life, and not just their life, but even the people that are connected to their life. I was reading a study. As a matter of fact, this has been shown in several studies. They show that your EQ, or your emotional intelligence, or your emotional quotient, is in many cases just as important as your IQ or how intelligent you are. In business and life, your emotional quotient is far more valuable many times than how smart you are. A lot of people who don't have a high IQ are still very successful in life. Why? Because they develop great skills in how to tame their emotions.